So those are the two priorities for me, which I guess they're high on the list for you too.
Well, they are. I mean, obviously we want a safe boat. We want a seaworthy boat. The problem with finding a boat that meets the criteria that you just outlined is difficult because it takes us back to some of the original hull designs. I'm not to say that the more modern hull designs aren't stable and or aren't comfortable, because they can be. But there are some irrefutable facts about weight and displacement and things like that you can't argue with the physics of these things. And it's true that a heavier boat is more kindly in the seaway, and it's more comfortable in the seaway, when weather kicks up. That's just one of the advantages of a heavier displacement boat. But when you start looking at heavy displacement boats, you oftentimes get into the full keel or the modified full keel canoe stern type boats. These are the boats that are usually the ones you find that are heavy displacement, the older hull forms. And the problem that's posed for us is that that's a criteria that we feel is important, but it conflicts with Gene's desire for a open floor plan type design, a nice wide beam carried as far aft as possible, so we could get that extra, width and space below. And so, we're trying to figure out a way to make a compromise without giving up too much of either one of the things that are important to us. And I think that's the kind of thing that makes it difficult, because really there aren't that many boats that straddle that line. You get into the lighter displacement boats and you're starting to talk about the Beneteaus and the Catalinas. I mean, they're not ultralight displacement, but they are lighter displacement. And then you get into the heavy displacements and you're talking about the Lord Nelsons, the West Sails, the Hans Christians, the Tayanas, the Babas. These are more heavy, more traditional hull forms. And then there is some middle ground. We have the medium displacement boats like the Morgans and boats like that, maybe Endeavor and the Newports and those kind of boats. So the problem for us is that a lot of times when we go aboard one of these boats, there's just something about the boat that just is kind of a deal breaker for us, one way or the other. But I will admit that in the recent the recent open house that we did with little yachts, we looked at a couple of Catalinas, and Catalina's never really been on my list for a number of reasons that I'll get into later. But we did go on a couple of Catalinas, and I think...
Yeah, I like them. I don't recognize the boat maker right away. I just kind of get in there, and Mark's more versed on that, and without even knowing the maker, I tended to gravitate towards the layout and the comfortable feel of the Catalinas on the inside. But I didn't know much about, other than that, how it would actually handle, but I guess you have to get to a point where you just have to trust the boat, that it's made well. If my concern is being out in the seas and being safe, well, they're probably all fairly safe, or else they wouldn't be sailboats. Do I want to feel safer as far as less apt to be tossed? Well, then maybe a heavier keel, full keel, and different things Mark was talking about would be best. But when you get to a point where you're frozen in the decision making because nothing's perfect, you have to kind of understand that there's a compromise and that nothing really bad's going to happen. It's still going to work out. It's still a sailboat that is going to be comfortable and is made to sail, basically. So a lot of things are personal that you just have to overcome. And I probably won't have that much of a fear once we've been doing this for a while. So I'm keeping that in mind too.
Yeah, and I guess if we had any one thing to say to our viewing audience, people who might be living this dream vicariously through us, or who may be planning on doing this and are not yet to the stage where they're looking for boats, or maybe they are looking for boats, if we can give any advice at all, it's don't get wrapped around the axle. Don't succumb to the paralysis of analysis. Allow yourself to move through the process and just file in your mind, or however, paper, write it down, but file those things that you discover that are important to you, and don't compromise. Don't settle for it, because while there is no such thing as the perfect boat, I'm certain that there is a boat out there that will meet most, if not all, of your needs.